A true story about a living man, a true story to prove how strong the case can be for goodness and greatness in the human spirit. It's entitled Dr. Ed and was documented for television by award-winning writer Sandra Michael. Playing the title role of Dr. Ed is Walter Matthau. Act one of Dr. Ed, a true story about a living man. It was October and a beautiful time in the countryside around Meadville, Pennsylvania. But a busy time, too, for Dr. Edward Connor, pediatrician. The season of school-time sniffles, the season of bruised and sometimes broken bones, of tonsils and adenoids and of croup in the deepest hours of the night. So far, it was one more October in Meadville. Brilliant skies, sunny, dazzling air. Now and then a chance for yet another game of golf before the snow took over. Everything normal. Not a hint, not a murmur, not the smallest warning to the doctor or to any of all those who loved him and saw him every day, that in this October 1952 there was scheduled a violent change in the life plan of Dr. Edward Connor, pediatrician.
Hi, Stevie.
Well, how yourself?
Dad gonna be ready to go home pretty soon?
Well, not very soon. Is your mother waiting outside?
No, she's gone home. But she said I could wait and drive home with Dad. Look what I've got.
Well, my goodness. Well, that looks like a bicycle bell.
That's what it is. Now all I need is the bicycle.
Well, Christmas is coming.
Yeah, but I don't think I'll get it too early this Christmas. But maybe next. I traded my chemistry set for this.
Ooh, Jody.
Sorry. Sure is loud, isn't it?
Yeah, look, why don't you go over there and read a magazine until your dad's ready to go, hmm?
Okay. Is he very sick?
Yes, he is.
My father will make him well again. He's a very good doctor. Hi, Uncle Joe.
Well, Champ, what are you doing here?
Waiting for Dad. You going home?
Pretty soon, but first I've got to go down and pick up that new car I ordered. Anyone want to go along for the ride?
Oh, boy, can I?
Glad to have your interesting company.
Me too.
Oh, Miss Stevens, will you tell Dr. Ed I'll drop this fellow off my way back?
Certainly, Doctor. Oh, you're going to remember about the dinner tonight, aren't you?
Oh, yes. Do you remind my brother?
No, but I will. I know he's planning to be there.
Good. I'll be back in half an hour if anyone calls.
All right, Doctor.
Now, easy.
Bye.
Easy.
Doctor's boy
Dr. Ed's boy.
and boy.
Yes, he is. They have a little girl, too. Both strong, healthy children.
And I knew it wasn't anything, but my husband thought you ought to see her anyway. Well, it certainly is a relief to know she's fine.
It couldn't be any finer, Mrs. Pfeiffer. Bye, Jeannie. Now, you take care of yourself.
Say goodbye to the doctor, dear.
Goodbye, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Connor.
Not at all.
So much, Dr. Connor.
Goodbye, Jeannie. Oh, Mrs. Matzik. Mr. Matzik.
How do you do, Doctor?
I know we shouldn't bother you. It's so late, but my husband works until...
That's perfectly all right, Mrs. Matzik. How's little Jimmy today?
Just the same, but I...
Oh, you, want to come in the office, please?
Thank you.
Oh, Stevie, any messages for me?
Jody was here, Doctor. He wanted to go home with you, but then your brother offered him a ride.
Oh, well, with that new car, how could I compete? Sit down, please. Mrs. Matzik, Mr. Matzik.
I wanted my husband to hear what you tell me about Jimmy, Doctor. I think maybe I don't understand so good. Maybe...
Well, I'm sure, Mr. Matzik, that you've already heard anything that I can tell you.
Dr. Connor, you see, I don't know. I tell my husband, it's like you're more hopeful. You don't say Jimmy never get better.
Well, I don't like to use the word never, Mrs. Matzik. I don't like to think that even in a case like this, there's no hope.
Even in a case like this?
Oh, Mary, you know, the other doctors told us how bad it is.
I know the other doctors, but I think Dr. Connor is different. I feel that he is.
Well, Mrs. Matzik, you know what we call Jimmy's trouble, muscular dystrophy. For some reason, we don't yet understand the muscle tissue. You know, the muscles, they deteriorate. They kind of disappear.
The same sickness our Teresa has. But the hospital in Pittsburgh take her. They're trying to help her. Why not him?
Mary, Jimmy is worse off. That's why.
I know he is worse off. He needs help even more. Dr. Connor, why won't someone help him?
Well, I'm sure they would if they could, Mrs. Matzik, but even the big hospitals sometimes don't have the facilities to take care of every handicapped case. See, it's a great problem, and especially in a small town like ours. Maybe someday we'll find...
Someday won't help our boy.
Mary, please.
Is he supposed to go on like this? Lying all day without able to lift his head like he was nothing? He's alive. He's a human being. And I know he's like other children inside in his head. I see it in his eyes and when he tries to talk. Doctor, it's like my baby was locked in a cage and nobody will help him to get out. With all the science and the medicine there is in the world and the wonderful things I do for people, why can't somebody do something for him? Isn't he worth saving? Do they think he should just die and it won't matter?
Of course not, Mrs. Matzik. Now, nobody thinks he should die. He's not going to die. Don't worry about that.
Oh, why did our children have to be born like this? Is it my fault, Doctor? Is it my husband?
No. You've got to get that idea out of your head, Mrs. Matzik. It's nobody's fault. Nobody's fault. We know very little about muscular dystrophy. We do know it can happen to anyone, just like the other crippling diseases. Sit down, Mrs. Matzik. You know my brother, Dr. Joseph.
Yes, Doctor.
You know that he has a beautiful daughter. Beautiful daughter. She was born with a crippling disease. These diseases that cripple our children, muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, polio, they can strike anywhere. Jimmy's trouble is not your fault, Mrs. Matzik, nor is it your husband's. As far as we know, it isn't anybody's fault. Well, maybe the fact that more isn't being done for children like Jimmy, maybe that's partly my fault as a doctor.
Your fault?
Yes, my fault. Other doctors. We should have time somehow to do more.
You've only got 2 hands, Doctor.
So far, that hasn't been enough, Mrs. Matzik.
Not enough. There wasn't enough of anything that was so desperately needed here. Not time or means or manpower. But if there were, the doctor dreams a wild, improbable, wonderful dream. This listless hand might learn to flex, to open, to close, to be a hand. This tragic, not quite lifelike figure might become a child. The child he can see in those eloquent, asking eyes. The doctor needs no microscope, no stethoscope to tell him what lives here in this cage, in this prison. A child with the same hunger for life that his own healthy children express in all their waking hours, and in some hours officially reserved for sleeping.
Hey, let me finish the rabbit for you, Cheryl. No, I have to do it myself. Oh, you'll never get it done. I can do it fast. No, Jody, no. You're not drawing a rabbit anyway. Looks more like a cow.
Well, the last time I looked in here, my children were on their way up to bed. You people must be new in the neighborhood, huh?
In a minute, Mommy. In a minute. She said she couldn't go to bed until she put a rabbit in a drawing. To keep the squirrel company. He'd get lonesome.
Well, now, that's a real nice idea, and something new in the way of excuses. But nevertheless, and even so, my friend...
Daddy's home! Daddy!
How are you, fellas? How's my little baby?
Hi, darling.
Hello.
Is there anything to the rumor that you're going to have time for a story before you leave for your dinner tonight?
Now, if certain people are in bed within 5 minutes, I may be able to...
Oh, children, please, your poor father's ears after a busy day. Are you awfully tired, Ed?
Oh, I was thinking about that Jimmy Matzik.
Matzik?
Parents brought him in again today.
Oh, are they the family with the muscular dystrophy children?
Saw the boy again this afternoon. No, honey, it's just driving me crazy, knowing that something can be done to save that child and not being able to do it.
Well, Ed, maybe someday you'll get that clinic you're always dreaming about.
Yeah. Maybe.
Well, in the meantime, you know you're doing everything you can. Everything humanly possible.
Honey, it isn't enough. It just isn't enough. How do we know what is humanly possible?
And so, gentlemen, in spite of this new material I've just reported on, I must say to you, doctors, in my opinion, it is in no way conclusive. So I suggest that you have the time that you read the report yourself. Thank you.
Well, I wonder if anyone ever will kill and lick the common cold.
Dr. Melling doesn't seem to think that last group's gone very far.
Well, I guess I'd better step along pretty soon if I expect to catch my train.
Oh, you got a little time yet. You know, you ought to get over here in the summertime, Dr. Bain. We could show you some fishing around here that'll really pop your eyes out. Not too far away, either.
You know, that's one thing I envy you fellows in the smaller communities. You, have a cigar?
No, thank you.
Even when you're busy, you still have a better chance for recreation. At least you don't have to waste a lot of time in transportation to get out to the country.
I can't argue with you there, Dr. Bain. It's a pretty good life.
Well, it agrees with you. That's obvious. You look like the healthiest person here.
Well, perhaps I should be. I happen to be the youngest.
I guess you're right at that. Let's see, you're about,
42.
42. Dr. Connor. Doctor!
Joe.
Betty?
Oh, I thought you went to the dinner with Ed.
What?
What is it, Joe? Something's wrong. What is it?
Now, Betty, I want you to...
On the morning of October 23rd, 1952, Dr. Ed was young, hale, and active, easily equal to his busy practice and the outdoor sports that he loved. There had never been so much as one faint forewarning of trouble that might have prepared his wife for the news of his sudden mysterious collapse. In drama, there is a rule against such unheralded action. In life, the rules are more flexible. Or perhaps we merely think they are because we lack the key to understand the plan.
Oh, dear God, help us.
Act 2 now of Dr. Ed, a true story documented for television by Sandra Michael. The morning of October 24th, 1952, Dr. Edward Connor's office in Meadville, Pennsylvania was empty. All appointments had been canceled. The doctor himself was the patient now. He lay on a hospital bed, paralyzed, unable to speak, partially blind. The first diagnosis, a blood clot in the brain.
Joe, how is he?
He's reasonably well.
Well, do you know yet what it is?
We're not certain.
Is it a blood clot?
We're not certain.
Oh, well. Oh, Joe, you must have some idea. Please tell me. Don't
Well,
keep...
it's too soon to be absolutely sure, but we think it could be
multiple sclerosis.
Multiple sclerosis?
So little is known about it, it's sometimes called the mysterious disease. It affects the nerves and the nerve ends.
Multiple sclerosis. Joe, that's awfully serious, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, dear God.
Oh, but Betty, so is life serious. Walking in the street is serious. Driving your car is certainly serious. That's no reason to think we can't manage both these hazards safely enough.
Joe, isn't that the disease they don't know any cure for?
Oh, they're working on it. They may come up with a cure next month, next week.
Well, in the meantime, won't Ed ever be able to see again? Will he always be paralyzed?
Oh, no, of course not. We hope he'll have his sight back very soon, and well, with modern drugs and therapy, he's got a very good chance of pulling through.
Joe, can I see him now?
Yes, for a minute.
Your wife is here, Doctor.
Hello, darling. It's me. Darling, your color's so good. The children send you 1,000,000 tons of love. Those are exactly the words they use. They're just crazy to come see you, and Joe says in a few days you'll... Oh, darling, I don't want to tire you with a lot of talk. I just want to make sure you don't lie there and worry about a single thing. Now, Joe and Dr. Collins are taking care of all your cases, and everything's just fine at home. The children have been so good. Of course, we miss you just terribly. Even though we know it won't be long before we have you home again. Oh, darling, of course you'll be all right. We all know that. Just rest, darling. Just rest.
The enemy? Multiple sclerosis. A mystery. No one yet knew where it came from, what it looked like, nor any certain weapons to use against it. But they fought it, inch by inch, hour by hour, week after week. They fought it with the latest medical information. They fought it with skill and with drugs. They fought it with endless examinations and devoted nursing. Progress was agonizingly slow. An improvement, a relapse. A bigger improvement, a smaller relapse. They fought it with science. And they fought it with love. The love of a wife. The love of a friend. The love of a son.
Bye.
The love of a brother. Between the patient and those who pulled him back over the edge of the cliff, there was love and faith, the two strong hands that will not let go.
Dr. Connor seeing any visitors during his dinner hour?
We've been Christmas shopping. You can look at the morning
Daddy?
trip, too. One fat one and one long one.
All right, that's enough out of you. Let's see how you did. Not bad at all.
Want to see something?
See what?
What, Dad?
Just watch.
Hey, Mom, look at Daddy standing up.
Oh, Ed, that's wonderful.
Well.
Hello, Sister Rosemary.
Oh, darling.
There. That's what comes of showing off. And I hate to say this, but it's time for lights out.
Dad, now you know how I feel when you send me up to bed.
How good it is to laugh, and how easy surrounded by love and understanding. The shadows have begun to fade. Dr. Ed is back in the great good world of reality again. He knows that he can expect soon to walk and work and live again.
Good night, Doctor. Sleep well.
Sister.
He liked the door left open a little. If he couldn't sleep, he could follow some of the activities in the hall out there. The feet walking by, so competent, so sure. Dr. Ed stared up at the ceiling he had come to know so well and wondered, did all the people blessed with hurrying feet ever give a moment's thought to the miracle? Does the golfer swinging into the bright new morning ever pause to marvel at the beauty of motion, of disciplined power and calculated precision, the fabulous perfection of a complicated system of command, mind, nerves, muscles, knives, forks, spoons? Let one's fancy go no further afield than that. The simple art of eating a meal. Simple. You lifting a spoonful of food to your mouth, did you notice how wonderful your hand is that holds the spoon just so, perfectly steady, level, and secure? What instrument has man ever made to equal the infinite skill and grace of the healthy human hand? And what invention was ever so remarkable as the human voice? Who thinks of this, ordering groceries or telling one's troubles to a friend? How many realize the marvel it is to speak, to be heard, to be understood? What about Jimmy Matzik, almost old enough for school and not able to walk, or to stand, or even to sit up? Not able to hold a fork or a spoon, a glass of milk or a slice of bread. Not able to make his mouth say words his mind so desperately wants to speak.
Oh, such a shame about the little Matzik boy. Completely helpless, like a rag doll. Oh, it's pathetic to try to do anything about children like that. Not right in his head.
It's so sad. Not more than a vegetable, really.
How could anyone dare to make such an evaluation just because the machinery of speech or the lines of communication had broken down? Was that any reason to say there was no mind behind the unused mechanism? Well, perhaps it's natural enough in our thoughtless way to confuse an uncertain speech with an uncertain mind. But how cruel when the mistake is directed at a child groping for its own place in the world, for life and laughter, for love and understanding.
Still awake. Is there anything I can get for you, Doctor?
Thank you, Sister. Another thing.
Been a lot of tramping up and down the halls. Maybe it was the noise that kept you awake.
Not at all. Going to sleep now, Sister. Thank you. Very much.
Good night, Doctor.
It was not the noise that kept Dr. Ed awake. It was the silence. The silence of the crippled children, the rejects, the ones they called hopeless. It was their silence that echoed and ached in his heart. The long white winter passed and spring moved in over the hills of Meadville. Dr. Connor was up and around, and many people considered his recovery is no less a miracle than the always new miracle of spring itself.
Miss Stevens, was that Dr. Ed who just left here?
It certainly was.
Well, I can't believe it. Isn't it wonderful to think he's able to get around like that again?
He and Mrs. Connor brought us these tulips this morning. He even helped her pick them in the garden himself.
Well, it's like a miracle. Pretty soon he'll be able to have office hours again at the rate he's going.
I hope so. He's on his way over to Adamsville now to try some new kind of therapy.
Oh, really?
I don't know just what it is exactly, but it's some new kind of physiotherapy called cyclotherapy. A man by the name of Murphy developed it.
Well, I hope it helps him. You tell Dr. Ed I dropped in, won't you?
I certainly will. Oh, and give my love to Jeannie.
Owen K. Murphy, an engineer, himself equipped with the most powerful type of engine yet devised, a generous and loving heart for his fellow men. The meeting that day of O.K. Murphy and Dr. Ed Connor was written up in no headlines, but it should have been.
You saw how they rotated? Each on its own axis, moving in a multi-directional, variable amplitude cycloid fashion.
They work their way to the surface and then downward again.
Now, it occurred to me that this principle of deep, widespread stimulation that's been applied to physiotherapy in general, see? Look, I'm an engineer, not a doctor. But personally, I believe this will help you.
Dr. Lupsy considers it a new approach that ought to be explored.
Oh, excuse me. Sit down now, won't you, Doc?
Thank you. I certainly felt very soothing and relaxing.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
You know where I'd like to see this tried?
Where?
Children.
Children?
Crippled children. Children with polio, muscular dystrophy, spastics. If anyone needs special treatment, special therapy, it's those crippled children.
Well, I knew you were a pediatrician, Doctor. I didn't realize that crippled children were your special interest.
Well, back of my mind, I guess they always have been. My practice is like most. I have more normal patients than special ones. Besides, it just isn't the time or facilities to take care of cases that require highly specialized treatment. In the bigger cities, Mr. Murphy, it's a little easier. A child who's handicapped has a pretty fair chance of getting some good treatment, even though his parents might not be able to afford it. But you take a place like Meadville, small towns like that, well, it's real bad. People have no place to turn.
Well, that's a very deplorable situation.
It's not that they wouldn't like to do something. People of Meadville would, but they just can't. The child simply becomes a reject. The case is called hopeless. And the parents just sit around eating their hearts out while the child becomes more and more hopeless.
Tell me something, Doctor. If you could, what would you do to help the crippled children in your community?
What would I do?
Now, if you had the time and the money.
Well, that's easy, Mr. Murphy. I'd do what I'd like to see done in every community in this country. I'd open up a clinic for handicapped children.
Clinic, huh?
Right. I'd staff it with the best possible nurses and therapists I could find. I wouldn't say no to anybody who came in for help. And I'd never send a bill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Mr. Murphy. If I ever get this clinic started, why, I sure would like to use this therapy of yours.
Well, you get that started, Doctor. I'm sure you will. Excuse me, just a minute.
Hope I'm as positive as you will be.
Hello? Oh, Leo. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, hold on just a minute, will you, please? I expect to be over your way in, about a month, Doctor.
I'll see you then, and thanks again.
Yes, it's been my pleasure, Doctor.
Bye.
Bye. Yes, Leo.
Nothing happens unless first the dream. Carl Sandburg had said that about the Republic, all these United States. If you could build a nation out of such a fabric, so fine, so indestructible, surely you could build a clinic out of a dream. A clinic, a place where the helpless and hopeless might get their chance to belong in the world of childhood. There was only one thing wrong with Dr. Ed's dream. It would take a lot of money. There was nowhere to go without it. Act 3 of Dr. Ed, a true story documented for television by Sandra Michael. By the summer of 1953, Dr. Edward Connor had come a long way up the road of recovery. And he'd brought with him through all the steep, dark places a dream that was bright and costly.
All right, Doctor, your extra half hour is up for today.
What kind of a schedule is this anyway? 1 hour a day in my office.
An hour and a half today.
I could just get this back to normal if I didn't have to use it so much. I mean, you know, there's no reason in the world why I shouldn't be doing more work.
Are you doing more every day?
No, what I mean is now I've got time. Now I really could go to work on this clinic. It wouldn't be too much physical effort at first.
Oh, that's what you say.
And what if it were? Maybe it'd be good for me. Honey, you think I ought to try that clinic on the shoestring basis we were talking about, you know, in that empty store?
Well, you know best, Ed, but I thought you wanted to do it right or not at all.
I do, but we'll never be able to get that kind of money to do it. I was thinking maybe, I don't know, I'm not so sure, maybe for the benefit of the few we might be able to help. Maybe we ought to compromise. You know? Hello? Oh, he is? Good, Stevie. Ask him to come in. Murphy's here.
Murphy?
Okay, Murphy, you remember.
Oh,
He
yes.
stopped in when he came to town. Mr. Murphy, good to see you again.
Nice
How
to
are
see you, Doctor.
This is my wife, Betty, and Mr. Murphy.
Well,
How do you do, Mrs.
Mr.
Scott?
Murphy?
Well, I hope I'm not breaking in on any family
No.
conference here.
No, I was just leaving. I'll get some shopping done down in the sea later. I'm very glad to have met you, Mr. Murphy. My husband is very enthusiastic about your new therapy.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Well, so long.
Bye.
See you
Sit
later.
down, Mr. Murphy.
Well,
Bye.
You're back in practice again, are you? Well, that's wonderful.
Well, just an hour or so a day in my office. Not nearly enough to suit me, Mr. Murphy.
What I say, you'd made a phenomenal recovery.
I'm grateful to be where I am.
How's your project coming along?
My project?
Well, your dream clinic, don't you remember? We talked about it that afternoon in my office.
Here it is, Mr. Murphy. Still a dream.
Huh? Well, plans? Estimated cost of operation? Budget? Tell me something, Doctor. Would you have time to take on a project like this? Help plan it? Organize it? And then run it?
Mr. Murphy, that's like asking me whether I'd have time to breathe. You see, the big problem...
No, Doc. Ever since you started to talk about this thing, well, you've had me dreaming. I'd like to work with you on it. I've got some money. I feel I've been very fortunate. I can't think of a better way to spend it than on that clinic of yours. Mrs. Murphy and I are both crazy about children. We don't have any of our own, so we got to mulling this thing over, see? And we said to ourselves, this is for us. We'd like to underwrite that clinic if you'll run it, Dr. Connor.
You really mean this?
What do you say, Doctor?
Who would have had the right words at a time like this? A dream was going to come true. Not a dream for himself, but for others. The rejects, the forgotten. The silent children sitting in the corners of our world.
Oh, Ed, that's wonderful.
Of course I want to work with you on it.
Really, Doctor? You mean you take Jimmy, too?
And so the work started. A colossal amount of exhilarating, exciting work.
That must be about that house at 839 Park. Here, you dreamers need refueling.
Sure could use some. Feels as if we built the place already by hand.
You don't think we're working him too hard now, do you, Miss Connor?
Ed? Oh, I should say not. He thrives on it. I think he's improved faster since all this started.
Pardon us, madam. We're busy here.
Yes. Fresh coffee coming up.
Is that Collins?
He has to be up at the plant in about a half an hour. Now, where were we?
You were talking about the general appearance of the place.
Oh, yes. The whole atmosphere has to be happy. You know, bright, gay. Lots of colors.
Yeah, children love color.
Fantasy is what we want. The place shouldn't look like a clinic. Mustn't be anything cold or institutional about it. Nothing to frighten them. Just the opposite. Ought to have look like a play school. No, better than that. This place ought to be a fairyland. The minute the kids see it, they know that this place is for them. A happy place. Lots of fun. The whole idea has to be bright, positive, gay. Well, that in itself will make them more receptive and relaxed.
Yeah, that's fine. Yet the important thing is the children have to get the benefit of physiotherapy every possible moment of the time they're in the clinic.
Right. If we could get the equipment to look like toys and put the therapy units inside those. You know, you had one in your chair, right? Well, why not? Look, we could build them an airplane. Now, the kids would love that. The seat in the back would have therapy units built in them. They wouldn't even know we're there. Then we could build hand controls, foot pedal, whatever you say. Now, while the children are operating them, they're getting additional therapy.
And having fun.
Now, listen, we're getting someplace. Now,
Well, we could build boats and horses and bicycles. You know, all the things that kids are crazy about. It'd be like going to a circus every day.
Imagine what that would mean to a child who's never even been able to handle ordinary toys.
And that's it. You've got the answer. Come on. You tell me what it is, what you want. What the purpose of each piece of equipment is supposed to be, and we'll build you the darnest toys you ever saw.
What is this, anyway?
It looks like a dragon.
Oh, this is St. George and the Dragon. You see, St. George is a crippled child who's given a dragon a run for his money.
Oh, I see. Meadville Center for Handicapped Children.
Of course, I think it's a wonderful idea, but will it work?
What do you mean, will it work?
Well, you know how bad off some of those children are. And, well, when a child is born that way, I just wonder.
Well, I don't know, Laura, but I'll tell you this. If one of mine was a handicapped child, I'd thank heaven for a place like this. And I hope and pray it works.
Early in January of this year, 1954, the dream stood ready and waiting. Would it work? Everything was prepared for the young patients. No, not the patients, the happily expected guests, the playmates, the real owners-to-be of this fairyland. Best of all, these people were waiting. Dr. Ed, Dr. Joseph, the nurse, and the whole wonderful staff. Warm hearts and loving hands, ready to welcome the children. Would it work? There must have been a lot of people who wondered those first days. Some of the parents daring at last to hope, and yet wondering fearfully if their prayers really could be answered at last. And others, the skeptics like Ken Forsythe, newspaper man sent here for a human interest story.
Forsythe, all the children that come here referred by their own doctors. See, we will take any child in the community that's handicapped. Muscular dystrophy victims, polio victims, cerebral palsy.
Well, Dr. Connor, I think it's a great thing you've taken on here. A great thing, believe me. But just how much can you actually do for those kids? I mean, I took a good look at them, and some of them, well, I don't see... Can you actually make human beings out of them?
Mr. Forsythe, they are human beings.
Well,
See,
yes.
a lot of people think that a cerebral palsied child is perhaps not as mentally alert as a so-called normal one. In a lot of instances, Mr. Forsythe, they're even more alert.
Well, now, for instance, that little boy you were telling me about, the one who can't even sit up, why, he must be 5 years old. What are his prospects?
I don't know, but we'll do everything we can. And as a matter of fact, I'm very hopeful about Jimmy Matzik.
Hello, sweetheart. How are you? Hey, I'll be out to see you pretty soon. Huh?
She's beautiful.
Beautiful. Now that one. Just how much can you really help her?
Mr. Forsythe, someday this little girl might be able to dress herself.
Dress herself?
That's right. Now, you stop and think for a minute. What a magnificent thing that is. A simple act, like dressing oneself is to a human being that's never been able to do it before. Think what it means to her parents to have that child independent enough to dress herself. Well, to you and me and, well, perhaps others, act like that doesn't seem like much. To these children, these are miraculous accomplishments. Miraculous accomplishments. Well, I have hope for all the children. Some, I think, will even be more competent or as competent as normal children. And even if there are some who don't improve dramatically, the very fact that we've taken them
that something is being done for them. Think of what an effect that can have on the attitude of the parents, the home, and the family.
Yeah, well, Doctor, you've sure cut out a job for yourself. There's just one more thing. You yourself don't get any, I mean, you contribute your services.
That's right. I make my living in my private practice. I don't get paid here, and neither do any of the other doctors on the board. That is, we don't get paid in a monetary sense.
Well, thank you very much, Doctor.
That's all. Forsythe. We should come back in about 6 months and see what the returns are by then.
I think I will. Thank you. Bye.
Not at all. Thank you.
And so Dr. Ed and his staff went to work. They shortened the word hopeless to the word hope. The word helpless became the word help. For the first time, a child knew what it was to help yourself. Jimmy Matzik no longer lay staring on his bed, waiting, listless and alone. He was in the world of others, learning to live, to smile. Dr. Ed worked, watched over them, and hoped. And on June 20th, 1954, he was ready to hold open house at number 839 Park Avenue, Meadville, Pennsylvania. His dream had been a reality for 6 busy months, and now the people had come to see for themselves had it worked.
Wonderful thing I've ever seen.
Thanks, Hendrick. Did you see our Robert E. Lee steamboat?
It's wonderful.
Bobby. And Johnny. This is Miss Hendrick. She's from Look Magazine. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, here's Sonia. Sonia on the Swan. Good.
Did you ever see anyone having a better time? You darling. It's my little boy. Kitty. He's a wonderful-looking boy. 6 months ago, he couldn't lift his head from the pillow. His little sister couldn't walk alone. Now she goes to school. It's like a miracle. It is. No one gave us any hope before. And then that wonderful Dr. Connor. Just think what he has done for us. Even when he couldn't get around very well himself, he was here every day helping with the children.
He's fine now.
He is. God has blessed him, and no wonder. Excuse me.
Well, hi.
Oh, hi.
You're Sally Hendricks of Look Magazine, aren't you?
I guess I am. I'd almost forgotten who I am, not to mention where from.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Ken Forsythe. I'm the guy that thought this couldn't happen.
Really?
Yes, I saw these kids when they first began coming here.
Excuse me a second.
Glad you were able to get here, Miss Forsythe.
Oh, Doctor, tell me something. The little girl working on the ladder over there, is that the same little girl I saw here last January? The one who couldn't even use her hands?
Same child.
And the little fella in the shoe there, is he the one I saw carried in here like a rag doll just 6 months ago?
That's right. That's Jimmy Matzik. 6 months ago, last January, he wasn't able to sit up. No. Now he can stand with support. You know, he can drink, he can hold a cup, he can feed himself.
Doctor, how do you do it? I mean, what makes it work? Is it the therapy, or is it the atmosphere of the place, or is it the massage, or is it a combination of the whole works?
I'll tell you, Mr. Forsythe, I think it's a combination of many things. Each factor is important in itself, and important as part of the whole. The atmosphere of the place, the new types of physiotherapy, and the love that you can see the staff feels for the children, that's very important, and children for them.
Well, whatever it is, it certainly works. The way they respond, you know.
I've never seen grown-ups work harder at a difficult job. And believe me, Mr. Forsythe, walking is a difficult job to a child with muscular dystrophy. But they try over and over again until they can do it. I'd like to show you something. Come here.
Hello, Jimmy. How are you? There's that smile, attaboy.
Come on, we go for a little walk. We go for a walk? Come on. Boy, hold it there. Good boy. Okay. Now, wait a minute before you go for a walk. Okay. Come on, Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy boy. Attaboy, Jimmy. Doing fine, Jimmy. Good boy, Jimmy. Good boy. Come on. Come on. Little more. Two more steps. Come on. Come on. Come on. Made it. Jimmy, I'd like you to meet Mr. Forsythe. He's a newspaper reporter.
Hi, Jimmy. You, got anything to say for the press?
My doctor.
My doctor, whose heart understood the heart of a lonely child, whose hand reached out to raise up the helpless, the rejected, the forgotten. My doctor, whose dream for others the skeptics said would never work. But it does work, thanks to faith, to love and understanding, and to a very high order of courage. Thanks to all who have joined strong and gentle hands in this work. Mr. Murphy, Dr. Joseph, the devoted and wonderful staff, and thanks first and last to the man who has been their daily inspiration, their leader, a great and happy man, my doctor, Edward Connor.